Argentina is a country that has defaulted so many times, it has turned crises into a national tradition. 9 official defaults. Some argue 10. Others say the number doesn't matter anymore because the pattern never changes. Boom bust, bailout, denial, repeat. If sovereign collapse had a Hall of Fame, Argentina would have its own wing. The real suspense isn't whether the next default will happen, only when. This is the Financial Historian, where money, politics, and power weave together. And the story is always bigger than it appears. Because Argentina's downfall is not just about Argentina. It is a case study in what happens when a nation treats economics like a stage play and the currency like a prop. When financial reality becomes optional, consequences become inevitable. And in Argentina, those consequences have returned like seasons, predictable, cyclical, unavoidable. To understand the disaster, you have to rewind to a time when Argentina wasn't a warning. It was a wonder. In the early 1900s, Argentina was a rising star, one of the richest nations on earth, with more wealth per person than almost all of Europe. Its farms fed continents. Its ports overflowed immigrants, crossed oceans to chase fortunes on the pampas. Buenos Aires looked less like a South American capital and more like a European masterpiece. Boulevards, opera houses, electric streetcars, and gold-backed money that the world trusted. For a moment, the future looked guaranteed. Argentina had the ingredients to become a superpower, but prosperity can hide fragility. And when the Great Depression slammed into the world, Argentina's export empire collapsed. Wheat and beef no longer bought influence. Prices imploded. Jobs vanished. Foreign investors fled. And in 1930, the military toppled the government, beginning a new rhythm, one defined not by progress, but by improvisation. From then on, Argentina cycled between coups and elections like a pendulum. Every new leadership promised stability. Every crisis forced shortcuts. Long-term planning gave way to political survival, and into this unstable landscape stepped a man who would define the nation's identity for generations. Juan Domingo Perón. Perón offered dignity to workers and hope to the poor, and for a time, he delivered. Factories reopened. Wages surged. Social programs expanded. But the engine behind the prosperity wasn't productivity. It was spending money the country didn't have, funding benefits the economy couldn't sustain, and turning the printing press into a political strategy. The economic model that emerged, equal parts nationalism, populism, and personality cult, became Argentina's most enduring export. Not because it worked, but because every government, Peronist or not, learned to use it. Borrow in good times, print in bad times. Spend to stay popular. Hope inflation arrives slowly enough to avoid blame. By the 1950s, inflation had become a constant companion. By the 1960s, it was a habit. Ordinary families kept US dollars under mattresses. Because the peso could not be trusted, a shadow currency market formed, one that would eventually be called the blue dollar. Governments promised stabilization, launched reforms, and wrote slogans. But the policies never changed. Spend more, print more, borrow more. Repeat. By the 1970s, political chaos turned violent. Military generals, not economists, made financial decisions. They borrowed obsessively, insisting growth was imminent. But the debt didn't build industries. It built illusions. The dictatorship from 1976 to 1983 nearly sextupled the nation's external debt. Inflation gutted savings. Corruption hollowed institutions. And when the global debt crisis hit in 1982, Argentina stumbled into its first modern default. That default wouldn't be the last. It was just the opening chapter in a long relationship with the IMF. A relationship defined by emergency loans, reluctant reforms, and temporary recoveries. By the late 1980s, inflation exploded into hyperinflation. Not 50%, not 100%, but thousands of percent. Prices doubled in days. Supermarket shelves emptied before paychecks could be spent. The middle class evaporated almost overnight. A nation once wealthy enough to rival Europe was now scrambling to afford bread. Then, in 1991, Argentina tried something bold. It shackled the peso to the US dollar. 1 peso, $1. The convertibility plan created instant credibility. Inflation died. Investments surged. The streets filled with imported goods. It felt like a miracle, because it was artificial. A currency fixed to the dollar brought stability, but only as long as the world cooperated. When global conditions shifted, Argentina couldn't adjust. It couldn't print dollars. It could only borrow them. The system was a beautifully wrapped time bomb. In 2001, it detonated. Argentina defaulted on $132 billion. The biggest sovereign default ever recorded at the time. Banks shut their doors. Savings evaporated. Rage filled the streets. Governments collapsed like dominoes. The nation fell into chaos. And yet, Argentina recovered just enough to repeat the cycle again. A commodity boom in the 2000s fueled a rebound. Governments insisted the crisis was behind them. They manipulated data, expropriated pensions, expanded subsidies, and as always borrowed. By 2014, the cycle collapsed again. Another default, another restructuring, another promise. By 2020, Argentina was once again renegotiating billions in debt, and inflation? No longer a crisis. A climate, a permanent feature of daily life. Prices adjusted weekly. Rent contracts indexed to the dollar. Shoppers rushed to buy before prices changed again. And throughout the country, the same question echoed. What is money worth when no one trusts the people printing it? For many Argentines, the answer is simple. Money is whatever the blue dollar says it is, behind convenience stores and offices. Unmarked currency exchanges. Cuevas keep the real economy running. Everyone knows where they are. Everyone uses them. Even the authorities look the other way. In a country where the official price is fiction, the shadow price becomes truth. In the middle of all this, the world stepped in again. In 2025, the United States, under President Trump, offered Argentina a bailout worth tens of billions. Not out of charity, but strategy. Washington wants Argentina stable, aligned, and far from China's influence. But money can't fix what trust has destroyed. The bailout calms headlines, steadies markets, buys time. But the deeper problem remains. Argentina doesn't have a financial crisis. It has a financial culture, a culture where governments overspend, citizens distrust, and everyone plays a game of survival instead of a game of growth. That's the real tragedy. A country rich in resources, talent, and resilience, caught in a loop of its own making. A place where the people adapt faster than the policies, where survival replaces planning, and where potential is always the first casualty. Argentina isn't doomed, but it is trapped by habits, by history, and by the belief that someone else will always show up with a rescue. Nations don't fail from poverty. They fail from denial, and Argentina has denied reality longer than most. What's happening there is not exotic. It's a preview. Any nation that spends too much, borrows too freely, or prints too recklessly risks the same fate. Argentina just reached the future early. History doesn't repeat itself, but it always collects payment. And Argentina, once again, is preparing the check. If this helped you see the world differently, subscribe. The past always has the answers. You just need to know where to look.